Can churches become toxic? Well, absolutely. These days it seems like I'm running into people all the time who have at some point in their lives experienced a toxic church situation. Some survive and continue to follow Jesus, maybe in another church. Others will follow Jesus outside of a church. And some don't survive at all in terms of faith. They just walk away completely. And any of these outcomes is sad, but walking away from Jesus because of people's mistakes, I think that's the saddest. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bogart of Aspect Ministries, and I understand. I've been in Christian ministry for most of my adult life, but believe it or not, there have been times when I too have experienced hurt and pain from toxic Christian situations. In this series on the toxic church, I explain a number of reasons why churches and Christian organizations can become toxic. My previous video in the series dealt with dysfunctional body life. But another reason why churches become toxic is through an imbalanced program. So let me explain. I've seen at least 3 ways this can happen. But first, what do I mean by an imbalanced church program? Well, some churches are started by visionary type people who feel called by God to do a certain thing. Maybe it's feed the homeless or rescue people caught up in gangs or run a community-wide youth outreach or reach people of a particular demographic or ethnicity. And this mission can become all-consuming, and it may crowd out all the other kinds of things that churches are mandated to do in the New Testament. Maybe it's a change in leadership, and the new regime comes in with this singular focus. But either way, whether commendable or not, a certain program or emphasis becomes the main focus of the church, maybe even the sole focus. So what are these 3 ways that churches can become imbalanced in their program and therefore toxic? Well, first, by pressuring their people into serving in that central program regardless of their maturity, their training, their experience, their calling, or their passion. People in the congregation may find that Christian service as defined by the current vision may pretty much mean that you gotta plug into the main program. So you need to volunteer to help run the program in some way, or show up when the meetings are held, serve on the leadership team, give financially to fund the work, and work behind the scenes in all sorts of ways. Many in the church will gladly serve, of course. They may have been drawn to the church for the very reason that such a program is offered and is running successfully. Their desires and their calling coincide with the vision. But not everybody's part of a congregation because they love the program. Many people are there because the church is conveniently located. Others are there because they may have friends in the congregation. Still others might have joined at a time of great personal need, or maybe under a previous leadership when there was a different vision and more balance. The pressure to serve the main program may cause stress for some people rather than fulfillment because it doesn't fit their spiritual gifts, their experience, or their interests. And sure, they may agree to serve and become involved for a time, but after a while they lose interest, they get tired, they become stressed, and just quit. And realizing that to belong means participating in that program, they move on, perhaps feeling like a failure. Another way such a church may become toxic is, in my opinion, even worse. When a member either declines to become involved or drops out of service, they may be guilted. Don't you love God? Don't you want to reach people for Jesus? You're so selfish. You aren't loving. You aren't spirit-filled. Are you sure you're a true Christian? I sometimes wonder if the people who say such things really believe that those words will make the reluctant person want to just jump back into the fold. Well, maybe it does sometimes, but most of the time it just drives them further away. They move on, feeling bad about themselves or just plain angry. And the saddest part is when they project their legitimate anger towards certain people onto God who never condoned any of it. One more way when churches who have imbalanced programs become toxic is when they don't provide their people with care or any real way to personally grow in faith. No real classes, no studies, no events, no celebrations, no opportunities for deep fellowship. Just the main program. Any training may be just to implement that vision, get people ready to serve in the program. And fellowship may be reduced to simply being co-workers in that program. And that gets old pretty fast. So what should you do if you find yourself in that kind of situation? Well, I can suggest a couple of things. First, pray that God will bring change, and don't forget to offer yourself to God as part of the solution if the opportunity arises. Next, speak to those who really make things happen in the church. Ask why things are the way they are and suggest a more balanced approach. If that fails and you can't stick it out, then look for a church with a more balanced ministry. Oh yeah, and be careful not to be a crank. In my experience as a leader, cranks are almost always dismissed immediately. If you do leave, be sure to go having resolved any issues that you can with the existing church and be ready to serve somewhere else that fits your calling, your gifts, and your time. I'll see you in the next video in the Toxic Church series when we'll look at legalism. Oh, that's a huge one. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries.